Electric Cafe.
Hey everybody, welcome back to Electric Cafe. This video is an album review on Clock DVA's 1992 album called Man Amplified. Um, this is the Clock DVA's second appearance on the channel, and I did get a chance to review their 1989 album called Buried Dreams, which got a 75 out of 100. I really loved that album. It was going to be interesting to really see which album I preferred after sort of critiquing and listening through both a couple times, which one I preferred. And I'm happy to say I found Man Amplified to be a little bit better than Buried Dreams, and it's for a couple reasons, and I'll get into that in a little bit. But it was like picking. It was like it was like it was just by the thinnest of hairs, and probably a very an opinion that I went back and forth with. And by this time, this album came out. Paul Browse was replaced by Robert E. Baker, and Paul Browse was a big reason why I loved early Clock DVA, along with Johnny Climack. I ended up following them along to Effective Force, who was on MFS Records in the early 90s, which was a German trance label, which Paul Van Dyke was on, and Visions of Shiva, and some other great early German trance artists. But they also did some music under System 01, which one of my favorite early rave tracks was called Drugs Work, and that track was on Nova Mute around the same time in 1992, 1993. It was one of my favorite early rave um, beginnings of heavier techno, and was an uh, early techno record that I found on Nova Mute, but was also on Trezor Records and compilations and things like that. But I always loved that track. But Paul Browse and Johnny Climack were really important to Clock DVA. But it's amazing how, even though they left, how still good this Clock DVA record was, and it just shows you how important Addie Newton was to the band and his vision of the band, and really kind of solidified himself as probably one of the best, if not the best, industrial voices of industrial music in the history of the genre. The thing that's great about this particular album is it's a little bit more rhythmic techno with a little bit industrial than it really was with industrial with a hint of techno. Like this album has a great blend of techno and industrial, but it's really more on the side of techno. There's almost like a groove that they put in this that sounds like it's like Cabaret Voltaire, but kind of elevated a little bit more towards like what Richard Kirk and Fred Gianelli would later on do in their solo work. Nobody really did techno and industrial music to the level of this than Clock DVA and Cabaret Voltaire and their solo members did it, in my opinion, as well as Psychic TV and Genesis P. Orge. But I mean, those three are just, I mean, they're so important to the evolution of transition of industrial music to techno in my background. They were so important to me evolving, like it was a really smooth transition to techno and back in the early 90s. Um, the great thing about this techno is also it sort of sounds like the evolution of New Beat. If any of you guys listen to like New Beat from Belgium and Netherlands and the Germany in late 1988 to like 1991, this Clock TV was really kind of the sound of that really evolving, adding a little bit of darkness to it, a little bit industrial, his great voice, and there you have the Clock DVA signature sound of this period. And what another great thing about Clock DVA during this time was they didn't give in to the faster speeds faster beats per minute that would dominate underground electronic music around 1992. Like they're still in the slower range of 80s industrial music, but they're still elevating the rhythms and elevating the atmosphere and the darker themes of the music, but not going overboard with making the music faster. And I really feel like that led to the timelessness of clock DVA sound and still being inspirational today is because they didn't follow the trends and really amp up the BPMs and go overboard or go towards any kind of cheesy rave element, or they really stuck in the industrial and a little bit of the new beat and really fine tuned it to they had almost the ideal industrial slash techno sound of the 80s and 90s, in my opinion. Again, along with Cabaret Voltaire and Psychic TV. There's 10 songs on this album, and going into the first track was the title track, Man Amplifiers, or Man Amplified, Man Amplifiers. This one's much more German sounding, and another great thing about this album is I don't know for a fact, but I would kind of like to think so because Paul Browse and sort of the direction of Clock DVA was really inspired by the UK techno scene at the time and the bleep techno sound of Sheffield in the late 80s and just the entire scene because there's a lot of melodies in some of these tracks like Man Amplifiers, Bitstream, Final Program. There's a lot of cool sounds in there that are very bleep techno, UK techno of the time. And again, that really helps lend itself to the timelessness of this type of techno and industrial music. Um, the great thing about this track specifically, the beat is just sick. Around 320, the melody comes in. Really great track. One of my top three favorites, probably actually my third favorite on the album. I give it a 7.5 out of 10. And let's take a listen to it and take a sample of it.
We dream of time, time to die, space to make and break. Escape your world. Endless path you made us walk. We dream of time, time to die.
All right, so that was the first track on the album called Man Amplifiers. I give that a 7.5 track. Love that beat on there. Love that vintage kind of UK bleep techno. Such a great track. Great track to open with too. Not far behind track number two, Techno Geist. Cool rhythm, bass, piano, and his voice. A powerful combination. But here you can see with the title track, Techno Geist. He's aligning himself with the techno music that's going on around that period. Really identifying that he's not only industrial, but he's deep into the rhythmic techno as well. And this is a really powerful combination. This track, one of my top five favorite of this album, gave it 7.25 stars. Track three, 6.5 stars, still really strong. This one's almost Kraftwerk a little bit meets industrial. There's some lighthearted sounds and melodies in here. Sometimes it meets the otherworldly kind of darkness and the singer's voice, and it's really a great combination with the music kind of growl and seriousness as well. Really good track, 6.5 stars. Track number four is actually my least favorite, but still it gets a 6 out of 10. Broken beat on here. Still a really good track, above average for the time. If the lowest track is a 6 out of 10, you know this album is going to get a good score. Um, Track number 5, Transitional Voices. I give this 7 out of 10 stars. This one's nice and smooth. A really good song as well. Track 6, Bitstream. This is my second favorite song on the album. Great bass line and groove. The piano is not only a bit spooky, but it has nice personality. It's not just dark to be dark. There's a nice edge to it, a nice ominous feel to. Again, it's a little bit bleepy with the UK techno sound. Really strong track, great groove on it, great percussion on it. 7 3/4 stars. Let's check out a sample from it.
Feel the energy. 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 You are number of desire. 20 miles.
All right, going on to track number 7, Fractalize. What can I say about this track? Probably my favorite clock DVA track of all time. Sick, 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 sick. The strings, the Kraftwerk funk is like taken to another level. The voice is great. The rhythm is so dope. I love the bleeps in there. The mechanical feel. It's just there's so much. Like anybody who doesn't think there's like a funk and a groove inside of industrial music, and how inspired it is by techno, and how important techno is to the lineage of industrial music, and how I honestly feel like if you have a rooted knowledge of 80s industrial music and early 90s, that you will be that much more knowledgeable about what is good and what is okay techno now. Like this is the funk in to think there's this kind of level of funk in an industrial track is just heard. It's just heard. It has to be heard. It's such a great track. Let's check out a sample from it just so you can hear it.
Out of the blue you rose. Out of time. Out of sight. We can't see. We can't touch. We can't feel.
I love that track, Fractalize number 7. Probably one of my favorite industrial tracks of all time. One of my favorite mixes of industrial and techno as well. Probably my favorite Clock DVA tracks. I gave it 9.25 stars. Classic, legendary, amazing song. It, it's everything that Clock DVA has all into one track. Just so mechanical, so dark, so broad sounding, and sci-fi and futuristic and groovy, and just it's just everything on so many levels. Just love that track. Such an awesome song. Let's go into track number 8, which I really like this track too. It's a little bit more driving, cool percussion parts. I gave it 7.25 stars as well. Let's check out a sample of this one too. Yeah, that was Final Program. 7.25 stars. Really like that track as well. And then the last two tracks, and the reason why I probably rated this a little bit higher than Buried Dreams, which I know how everybody loves Buried Dreams, and I love it as much too. But I feel like this album adds a couple additional tracks, and they happen to have a little bit more atmosphere, add a little bit more uh, character to the album, and it's the last two tracks. Dark Attractor, love the atmosphere on here, love the sci-fi, got 7.25 stars. Track number 10, Memories of Sound. Again, nice atmosphere, nice ending, 6.75 stars. So you would think 7.25 and 6.75 stars wouldn't necessarily help the album score be higher than Buried Dreams, but when I average out the entire album, I give it 72.5 stars divided by 10 tracks is a 72 and a half. And because it's got two additional tracks, and I feel like um, this album is a little bit more consistent, although I do wish the tracks were rearranged in a different way. The last two tracks, it would have been nice if one was an opener, maybe one was a closer, or one was opening, or one was closing, and the other one was the middle track. I would really like these two tracks to blend in with the album a lot more versus just being additional add-ons, because I really think it helps with the character. And more Clock DVA, 10 tracks versus 8. For the most part, when it's at this level, it's better. So I felt like this album is just a little bit better overall than Buried Dreams. I do feel like Buried Dreams has more. Maybe if I was to rate like the top 4 or 5 songs, Buried Dreams probably has a little bit stronger top 5 songs. But considering this album has a couple extra tracks, and it probably has my favorite tracks, and if I was probably to do the top 6 or 7 or even 8, I think this top 8 would be even better. And then you add again another two additional atmospheric tracks on there. I gave the album an extra 4.5 points for just what it does and what it did at the time and its impact. And I think even more so than Buried Dream, it blends techno even better than 1989 did, where that one was a little bit more new beat. This one ties into techno just as well, which was probably this underground style of dance music at the time. And new beat evolved into techno, and the speeds accelerated, but Clock DVA didn't give in to those faster techno beats per minute, and they really nailed it on this album in a lot of ways. Um, yeah, I gave the album a 77 out of 100. It's on the high side of a very good album. Very close to classic, very close. Maybe a couple songs just a little bit better on them, and I could easily see this being a classic. It's hard not to say any Clock DVA album isn't, or at least one Clock DVA album isn't a classic. I think most people think that maybe Man Amplified and Buried Dreams are probably the best Clock DVA album. I will review Thirst as well, um, and we'll see if that one can get in the 80s. There's a couple albums that I don't know from Clock DVA, so we'll see if any album can get in the 80s. But so close on these two albums. But I mean, such great albums for the time, and great examples of rhythmic techno in an industrial way. What can you say? 77 out of 100. Clock DVA Man Amplified. Great album. I'm curious what your thoughts on this album are. Top three tracks on here. If there's anything that you'd like me to review, just send me an email down below. I'd be curious to hear your request and see what you think you might like for me to review. And we'll go from there. All right. Thanks for watching.